This episode is brought to you by Zebedee Chaos. Stephen, do
Andrew.
you fancy spending a quiet night inside number 9?
Yeah, go on then.
Yes, so before we start, I should say Zebedee Chaos, not their real name, but a request to not give a shout out. But I feel like I want to give a recognition.
Shout out to someone.
Yeah.
Zebedee's taking all the credit.
It feels like the right thing to do. So thank you, Zebedee, for your kind donation. Merry Christmas. So yeah, we're going into the script books. Thinking out loud. Been looking forward to this one, haven't we?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. So what are we in? Series 5, episode 5, I think.
Yes. This was the one that when we first got the Insider's Guide, I think this was one of the first ones I turned to find out some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because of how it ended and because of how we felt about it first time watching. I wanted to know. Was there more going on? It turns out there was. And it turns out even Reese wasn't that happy with the way it turned out.
Yeah, John Plowman is the problem on this one.
John Plowman.
Yeah.
You said that as though we identify a problem with every episode. This week, the issue is John Plowman.
Oh, yes. And maybe we start there as the over-explanation at the end, which he thought was important for the heart of thinking, as he described them.
His words, not yours.
Not my words, yeah. And Stephen Reese thought, maybe we're going a bit over the top in terms of explaining. And I think going back and watching it again, it's like, this is such a good episode until all of that. Like it, and I don't think it totally undermines the episode, but it does take the shine off it, because I think people are able to think for themselves. And if they're not, that's fine. Just let them, do whatever with the episode. But I do think it does have an impact.
Because when I was watching it, I was kind of wondering, because I'd forgotten that the explanation comes out as it's being explained to Nadia what's going on in her head by the therapist. I'd forgotten that that's kind of how it was done. I remember it just being this sort of jolty surprise. Here you go, on a platter. I don't know whether there's a circumstance where that kind of explanation to a patient makes sense. Is that done? Is that something that they would do to try and sort of snap them out of it and give them an insight into how they're feeling? I don't know.
Let's go through the script.
Let's find it. For what it's worth.
Because I do, as I say, I think it's a fantastic concept, and the episode is great.
And the performances are as well.
Absolutely,
I think
fantastic. Yeah.
This set of performances that are going on in this are amazing. And you're right. The concept is really quite cool. It's just, is it a little ham-fisted? Let's find out.
Yeah, and it's directed by Steve Pemberton as well, isn't it? This one, which so it has reminiscent of like Cold Comfort with the still framed shots, which I'm sure we've talked about. So like normally we say the trip through the scripts that we do is like a follow-up to our original reaction episode. So if you haven't listened to that, then go back and have a listen to that first, where we really, I guess, took the whole thing apart.
We probably said all the things we've just said in the last few minutes as well.
Yeah, we probably did. We can't really remember what we said because it was a few years ago. But yeah, in this episode, we go through the script and compare what is in there with what we see on the screen. So, yeah, let's start at the beginning. Anything different that you noticed as we meet Bill Ryland and see his dating video being constructed?
Um, I was thinking while I was watching and reading, I find it quite interesting how inconsistent the directions are within the scripts, not just this one, but all the way through. Like sometimes there's a really tight level of direction within the scripts, and you've kind of got a lot of scene setting stuff and a lot of description of the environment. Other times it's just incredibly loose. And I don't know whether they're just leaving it up to what happens. I thought that was interesting that they don't kind of write for direction in a particular way. It just kind of depends on what they're doing when, how tight they are with it. It didn't really make clear that there was someone in the room with him recording him in the script.
No.
Because we've actually got a person off camera inviting him to sit down, take a seat, adjust his microphone, and all those kind of things that isn't directed at all. This kind of suggests, apart from his off camera looks and his can I say that stuff, it almost suggests in here that he just sits down and starts recording himself.
Yeah, because he's obviously gone in somewhere to record this for the company that does the dating videos. But yeah, there's instructions. That's what I made a note of that. Instructions about the camera and about what he's doing that are added after the fact. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few lines that Bill has had cut. Age-wise, his ideal partner will be like his record collection, between 33 and 45. He's willing to go to 50 if everything's in good working order. So that, I mean, it's obviously a joke. It's obviously, showing his sense of humor, but it's also a bit weird as he's obviously a lot older than that.
Yes, he is. Yes. He should probably be looking at 77s.
Yeah.
More than 30 degrees.
Yeah. And we also see in the script, it says, I've been out of the country for a while, living with my daughter in Abu Dhabi. So that's obviously a lie, because actually he's been in prison, we find out.
A strange lie. Abu Dhabi's quite a weird one to choose, to have just been living out there with your daughter. I found that an odd line. It went anyway, didn't it?
Yeah. I wonder whether there's a sense of trying to communicate that he's rich or something.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
But yeah, it is odd.
So then, there's some bits that were, I'd say, erring on the side of more racist than other bits. I joined a gym recently, got myself a personal trainer, knew he's Muslim, but we have a laugh about it. That stayed. But then I've always got on with the African lads, especially having been away for a few years. He's been away for a few years, he's been in jail. Yes. Lovely teeth and muscles like leather grapefruits. Yeah. Bit much.
Yeah.
And so maybe they just decided to tone him down a bit. Maybe let's not go there. And also, hey, it's all right. When he's talking about Nu, and he says, hey, it's all right for you. You can go down to disco in a tight white t-shirt and the girls will be all over you like flies on a cowpat. I wasn't being racist. I think there was just a feeling maybe that he was a bit too amped up here. Let's bring him down a notch.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and it's because it's interesting to reading the Insider's Guide. They talk about timing being a huge factor in this episode because on the whole, they got everybody to learn their entire bits and they wouldn't cut. So they just wanted one continuous shot through each person. So that was a bit of a challenge. But that's not the case with Bill. I think Bill is more, he's pieced together a little bit.
You can't really take any of the other ones into the editing room and slice out chunks of it and still keep that kind of impression of single kind of train of thought monologues.
No, exactly.
But with this, you could probably put a cut in, change camera angle.
And in some ways, if you think we're watching Bill's finished video, actually having the script is kind of like, oh yeah, that tells us what the bits he said that were cut out. And there's almost like a behind the scenes of Bill where there was too much Bill.
Too much Bill.
And the dating company decided, okay, we'll just remove those little bits. And then obviously with Bill, oh yeah, was that longer than 30 seconds?
I took a glance at the timeline on the episode. I was like, yeah, that's way.
How long was it?
We're talking about 3 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So then we meet Nadia.
Yeah, I've just noticed that it says that that's being played as International Therapist's Office Day.
Oh, yeah.
It can't be. It has to be her house.
Yeah, so this Nadia, 40s, spirited but with an underlying sadness, sits in a comfortable chair in a plain room addressing an unseen female therapist. The session is being recorded and looks like a straight-to-camera monologue.
So she can't be in a therapist's office because this is the same room that at the end of it, she murders Bill who's come to visit.
Yeah, she's in her sitting room. Yeah.
Is that a change? Because for the whole time, in fact, every single bit with her in is therapist's office. Until page 163, it becomes in therapist's office brackets Nadia's house day. But I wouldn't say that a lot of effort is made to make it look as though she's in a therapist's office.
No, because on that final one, it says, we now see that we are actually in Nadia's front room, a chaotic family home.
Yeah. I'd say that it looked like that from the outset, really, because you could just see her sat in a bay window, really, couldn't you? It didn't feel necessarily like a therapist's office.
No. And that's where, because, I mean, they talk about, okay, she's on a video call to the therapist. And then,
or the therapist is recording the conversation.
Yeah.
For later use.
Is Nadia recording herself talking to a camera that she's then going to give to the therapist later on?
But the therapist is talking to her.
Yeah.
It says possibly a slight German accent. They went with the German accent. It's a strange direction. Possibly slight German accent. Not a conversation we're going to have about this. This is something I'm going to pop in the script as a thought.
And that again would suggest perhaps that it's an archetype of a therapist in Nadia's head.
Yes.
That it's, Freud, Austrian, German. Let's go for that as the stereotype, which would make it not a real therapist.
Yes, it would. Because no real therapists talk with German accents. Only ones in your head.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think it's
so confused by this episode.
I think that reading this script and the way that it's delivered by Maxine Peake's quite amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's word for word. She absolutely nails the entire thing. And I guess when I started watching this and noticing that there wasn't much changing, it's the odd bit that's gone, you realize that this was, because they're all being delivered as monologues, you don't have that sense of, maybe it would be better if when they actually said this, the conversation went this way, because there isn't a
Yeah.
conversation. It is, we've thought about what we want them to say, timing permitting. This is what's going to be delivered. It's not there's no bouncing off. There's no, this would feel nicer if they interacted in this way, because there is no interaction. It is just talk to the camera and deliver those lines and put a bit of performance into it, which they all do very well.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, no, she's fantastic in that, sort of generating your own drama within it. She's got to do the whole thing herself. And and one of the things they talked about in the Insider's Guide was the fact that she was getting playful with it and really, I think, taking certain ideas and then running with them, and they were like, this is great. If this was on Netflix, we could run to 39 minutes or 36
Max,
minutes
rein
or
it
whatever.
in.
But it's like, we don't have that long. Which must have been really hard, especially if there were things where they're like, that's so good. But it is word for word. There's a bit when she's talking about the smugs that's cut, and telling her husband, you never guess what, the smugs are splitting up. He said, "Oh my God, that's brilliant news," and he gave me a hug. Well, actually, we actually high-fived in the kitchen, and then she says, "Well, it makes you feel a bit better about your own life, doesn't it? When seemingly perfect people are revealed to be just as screwed up as the rest of us." So that bit was cut out.
Maybe ironically, they felt it might be a little on the nose when they're talking about people being screwed up.
Yeah.
Only to then later on completely spell it out.
Absolutely. Yes, exactly.
No, you can't put that in there. That feels a bit too obvious.
And I think there are a few bits like that where it is like you've cut the thing that would give too much away, rightly so.
Only to then
I don't want to go on about it, but yeah.
Don't go on about it. Go on, wait till we do Merrily Merrily.
Next up is Galen.
Who they hired a coach for.
A dialect
coach, yeah. And basically looked up things that people from the South would say.
So his Louisiana accent. Which I was quite satisfied with.
Yeah.
The explanation of this being a thing in Nadia's head that is a caricature of someone from the south of North America, being a archetypical convict, having killed people with a Louisiana toothpick and all of that. But it turned out they were actually really proud.
Really went for it,
proud of Steve's accent. Which may be accurate. It just doesn't seem accurate to me.
Sorry, Steve.
Again, not much different. There's a bit about the farm keeping him busy.
Yeah, they took out kind of a bit of a line that basically said that loads of people came by the farm and he murdered them all. Farm kept me busy. Over the years, there were drifters, salesmen, runaways, families on vacation. They all went the same way as my kin.
Yeah.
Bit much.
Yeah.
Describe more murders to us, Galen. More. How many people?
And I mean, that's the bit before he then talks about having eaten human brains and mushy scrambled eggs.
That's not how he started with his mum. He just stabbed her and then suddenly becomes a brain eater. Yeah.
And then Angel.
Oh.
She's so good.
This character is just, so full on, and it's so horribly realistic of these, because she's the one that they didn't worry about single things. They just did multiple takes of particular words and then sliced it all together to make it as jittery and fast cuts as possible. I honestly honestly, with that style of filming, and it is real, people do film like that and people do post that.
I was going to say, I mean,
People
Steve, yeah, it's a great director for
yeah.
genuine
But
YouTube,
how do
TikTok
people
videos.
enjoy it? Do people genuinely go, oh, yeah, I like this is the kind of thing I like? Because it comes out of, I guess it comes out of just convenience, doesn't it? Where if you are doing the kind of thing where you're just talking at your audience on a screen and you're just responding to stuff and you don't have time to redo things. So all you do is quickly piece together when you decide to post like a vlog thing.
Mhm.
Is it just something that comes out of what they're doing rather than it being a preferred style of horrible jump cuttiness?
Yeah, I mean, it's promoted by people who are like YouTube gurus who tell you how to
Really?
cut and edit a YouTube video together. And there's a weird, and maybe it's just a sort of a trend catering to a lack of attention, and how everything has to be like massively quick
Hmm.
edit, no space between anything. And I find I find it impossible to watch things like that
Yeah.
myself. I think there's a reason we have spaces between
Yes.
phrases and words and
Yeah.
stuff, because it actually helps you understand what's being said.
Yes.
And I think part of that, my theory is you you don't hear, or you don't have time to think or consider what is being said. You just hear what you already believe because
Hmm.
you can't process anything else. So
There's
it's
no
like,
sense of letting anything land at all.
yeah, yeah,
Fill the silence, fill any thinking space.
yeah. And it's just like being battered around the head. Like, yeah, I don't get it. There's so many YouTube channels like that it's like gregarious, really, really noisy, really
Mm.
abrasive, and it's like you can't. This is not enjoyable.
No.
But at the same time, it's almost like that's what people are trained to do, so that people don't get bored. But it's like
I'm bored of
I
it.
get bored
I'm
of not
bored.
being able to figure out what I'm
Ah.
actually being told. So yeah, it's very weird, very weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff cut where she's just talking about
Blathering on.
stuff. It's not worth even, yeah, referencing, I don't think.
Let's not even talk about it.
And then we meet Aiden.
Yeah. So this was one where I guess they were able to cut some stuff down because they had control here. Because it was we could run it again. We can record again. We've got Reese here. They were Steve was quite effusive in his praise for this in the Insider's Guide of quite what a superb bit of acting this is on Reese's part. I noticed.
Yeah.
And it's a really tragic story. If you just take it at face value and not part of some system. This idea of someone getting a diagnosis that means that they are going to miss out on the birth of their daughter by the matter of weeks.
Mm.
And it's that bit with the back and forward with the doctor of when's her due date?
Yeah.
Just a few weeks before mine, after mine. Oh, hard luck. Just horrible.
Yeah. Really poignant. Yeah.
But yeah, it's I think they just kind of cut out a little bit of fluff in his storytelling. Particularly a bit about the little story about the lubricant for the ultrasound. Just some little bits and pieces in there. The lubricant made a bit of a farting sound when she squeezed it onto your mum's tummy. We both laughed, but the Valkyrie just sighed and put the ultrasound on. And here you are. One line that I don't know why it jumped out that they got it. He said, I don't know why, but that sound used to really depress me. It was the Sundayness of it, I suppose. That remains. But then they never had the thrill of Saturdays. I don't know why. I mean, we all know why. Sundays are Sundays. Sunday, bloody Sunday.
Yeah. It's like the Sundayness is a real thing. Like it, yeah.
Obviously, if you remember it's Sunday.
If I remember it's Sunday. Yeah, which I didn't this week.
So yeah, it was just a couple of little bits and pieces out of his storytelling that went. I think just must have been a time thing. It wasn't anything big. And then we meet our singer, Diana. And they changed some bits up here in terms of the cutting between things. I noticed that we get an extra Aiden, who's taking pills in one of the scenes they cut to during it. It was just, it didn't really match up with what was here. It felt a little bit more like, let's just kind of work our way around everyone a couple of times. Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that. We go back to Aiden.
Who doesn't have a drip. He doesn't seem to be attached to a drip.
Yeah, I hadn't noticed that.
But he does look unwell with his hat on.
The hat makes a difference. Yeah,
it does. A sense that he's on his way out is what it says in the script.
Yeah, and there's also a comment. Your mother's being a rock as always. It helps that she's quite a bit younger than I am. That's cut.
As same as the 45, 33 to 45. They're cutting references to ages of spouses.
Yeah, that's true.
Why?
When I read that one, but it felt like not relevant or not the kind of thing that you would potentially say in that context.
But they also removed it'd give me peace to know she could find happiness with someone else. That kind of whole chunk of, apart from he says that I'm trying to persuade her to sign up for those dating sites. But I don't know, removing the bit where he's actually spelling out that I want her to find happiness rather than I'm begrudgingly just saying crack on without me. Honestly, you know what? Crack on. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Honest things you say, but actually you can't think of anything worse in reality than your spouse moving on when you've died. And to drop the line that he was confiding to the camera that no, he genuinely would be good with that changes it a little bit.
Yeah, I wonder whether there's anything in because obviously there's processing of the trauma in Nadia of her like dad killing her mum essentially, and whether that feels like a jarring thing that wouldn't make sense in that relationship.
Yeah, perhaps.
I don't know. But then it helps that she's quite a bit younger than I am. Could be a reference to that. You know, is that something that was her mum a lot younger? Or
well, the thing is though that would be quite difficult because the age gap between Bill and Nadia doesn't look that crazy.
No.
So for mum to also be a fair bit younger than him would be iffy. Because if he's got 20 years on the mum,
then she was very young when she gave birth to Nadia.
Yeah, very young. So maybe it's that. Maybe they went down the line of, hang on a minute, we need to watch out here that we don't end up with a 10-year-old mum here.
Yeah.
If there's 20 years between Bill and mum and then 10 years and only 30 years between Bill and Maxine, yeah.
You do the math.
Do the math. Yeah. Maybe that's why they cut all of those references about mum's ages.
Yeah. Yeah, it's easier if the episode is not hinging on those kinds of things, it's not worth
Hang on a
including
minute.
them. Yeah.
How old? Don't think about it.
Yeah. Quite.
When you were 4 years old, you repeatedly witnessed your father beat your mother in a drunken rage. Yeah. Yeah. So we get everything kind of runs to script really for a long chunks from this in.
Yeah, it's very little changed now.
So we now start to get into reveal territory where the gatekeeper, the therapist, who knows, what those words are kind of being interspersed by things that Bill is saying in her head. Although he doesn't say, they cut the bit where he comes in and says, "My wife passed away, sadly."
Yeah.
Almost maybe a little bit too obvious. Cut to the bit where he says his wife passed away after you've just described him brutally murdering her. And yeah, that was kind of it, really, in terms of script. It's all very true to it.
Yeah.
And we've kind of spoken about why and what really the fact that it was just a series of monologues that were very well written in the first place being delivered.
Yeah, and everything is just, I mean, it's that explanation then, which is, I mean, from the perspective of the sort of dissociative personality stuff, it is really interesting to see how the psyche builds those things, and that is like true to certain theories of this. And it is fascinating, but it's kind of it's the stuff that you would want to go away and research afterwards, because it's like, with all the explanations about the caretaker and the protector and these different almost archetypes that are there within you, it's interesting to then piece it together. Oh, that person must have been that, but to have it spelled out and just like reading the script through again, I'm like,
is there an alternative? Was there another way around this that allowed for the heart of thinking to be catered for to some extent?
I think it explains itself when you get the reveal at the end. Like, I think you can, whether you want that sort of Star Wars style, everybody sort of gathering around and coming back to life or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And I think that would be better if you didn't have the explanation, because it would be like, okay, right, we've seen all of these different parts and maybe they then merge into the one. But I think having both of those is too much. I think.
Okay. Counterpoint.
Yeah.
When things were left very vague in Last Night at the Proms, that's made that a lot of people's least favorite episode. It's like, what the hell was all that about? What was going on there? Do they give their own audience too much credit?
But I think,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I mean, like, yeah, it's a purely personal thing. Like, I love being made to think, and I love the ambiguity of being able to theorize about things afterwards.
Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing this.
Well, and I think it feels with this episode like that gift has been just snatched away, because it's like, oh, right, I don't even have to think about what this is saying or what this is about. Like, there's no room for theorizing, because
there's not even room for looking at differences between the script and the thing, because it's all the same.
Yeah. Whereas like the Last Night of the Proms, I think, is so open to different, and I mean, even our discussions and people like leaving comments on YouTube and everything. It's like, this is so good with respect to the fact that it's left people with such a diverse range of responses, that to me, that's what art is. That's what it should be doing. And that's the beauty of it, is that we interpret it in completely different ways, and whether there is or is not a correct way to read it who knows? And that's up to Stephen Reese. But like in this case, it's all spelled out. So like,
Plowman.
yeah, Plowman. Oh, John.
He's
I
had a
don't know.
shocker.
I think what I find really frustrating is the fact that it's such a good episode until that, and whether there's a point at which you could turn the episode off, or like a bit that you could remove from the episode to make it work better, in terms of being more.
Steve Reese, I've got here's some notes. Pass over a couple of notes.
I mean, they could have left in the extra stuff with Nadia that took it to the 37 or however many minutes
By just
Netflix
cutting out
version, and then get rid of the bit that just, yeah, I don't know. Oh. Anyway,
Well.
that's what we think, or I think. I'm not gonna. You haven't professed really strong opinions on this, but
No, I was as irritated this time round as I was first time round. I just remember that frustration of you. There's nothing. There's no work to do here at all.
Yeah,
and I think it's so out of character. It's so out of character for the writing, where so often you're invited to just think things and consider things, and unless it's really explicitly clearly written, like the fact that at the end of Control Alt Escape he dies, that's cut and dry. Obvious writing there as well. I mean,
but no, that is a great example again of the ambiguity. That
there's no ambiguity there, mate. I don't know what you're talking about.
But you are sure about your interpretation of that in the same way as other people who have disagreed with your facts. People have alternative facts to your facts. But that's the beauty of it, and it's like it is left open. There is like nobody can say definitively this is,
and that was an episode that could have been right for this, because it's very similar. There's a whole constructed environment inside someone's head, and they manage to make that work without pulling it apart and spitting at in your face. This is what is happening here. The doctor is this person here. You were allowed to figure out that the doctor inside the escape room was
I think that's a really good point.
Working in. So it's perfectly possible. There's the alternative. The alternative is Control Alt Escape.
Yeah, that's their second go at this sort of thing.
Construction inside someone's head. You can put the pieces together with just enough display of what's going on in the real world versus what's going on in their head. You can draw those links, I guess.
I think that's a really good point. Yeah, because I think that, like with Thinking Out Loud, the thing, because I remember first watching it, you're moving towards this this expectation of, okay, I'm gonna have to try and figure this out myself, and like I'm ready for that as we're coming towards the end of the episode. And that's where it feels like such a clunky, almost sideswipe of like, whoa, that's just
the first thing, because there's the moment that it kind of, there's a real issue with things making sense is when Galen is there, when she closes the door behind her.
Yeah.
At that moment, that's like, okay, right, something's not okay here, because either someone has really screwed up with the way they're thinking about camera angles and mirrors in this setting, or he is just stood there and therefore this isn't real. There's something that doesn't sit right here. He can't be stood there. She would have been looking straight at him.
Yeah, exactly. And then that's
the
invitation apart. as you're watching that. And I hadn't realized, because they had the talking about the sort of fragmented things that are in the different scenes, and like the stained glass window where the 9 is above the door, and then there's bits in the different scenes where there's fragmented pieces. And again, stuff like that, where it's like, oh no, you get the gift of theorizing and going back and watching it again and being like, oh, maybe it's that. Maybe
Join the
it's
dots backwards
yeah.
afterwards.
And actually, and that is taken away from you with such a clunky explanation. And you don't get to enjoy the second watch as much as you would if that wasn't there. And the third watch and the fourth, like all of these, like
you watched this 4 times.
going back through the onion, like, you know, peeling back those layers and, oh yeah, that seed was there. This makes sense with this. And then, yeah, even like just getting to talk to other fans of the show about what do you think that's about? It's like, oh, we know what it's about because there's a frigging therapist who's explained it all.
But not a therapist.
Not a therapist.
Is it a therapist, not a therapist?
Oh, man. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway.
Glad that one's done.
Yeah. I was excited. I was actually, excited to go back and watch. And I hoped that it was not quite what I remembered, but like, and it wasn't. It was a lot better than I remembered just until then. And I think that's what, as I say, and I'm probably just repeating myself, like, I think that's what frustrates me is that it's such a good episode. Bloody Plowman gets involved.
Plowman!
Plowman! What are you doing? Yeah. Anyway. We shall wrap up series 5 with the stakeout next time. Are we going to do a special day special?
Yeah.
Because that might come next.
I'm keen for a special day special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like we should have some sort of quiz.
Quizmas.
Should we see if should we get ChatGPT to create an Inside Number 9 quiz for it? Be impossible to answer.
In my version of the series Inside Number 9, in the episode based on a cruise liner, what?
Yeah. We could do that.
Why haven't there been an episode on a cruise liner? Reese, you should do an episode based on a cruise liner.
Yeah, so we'll either do that, or if any listeners have quiz questions that you want us to answer, you can do that by emailing us at quietnightinsideKnow9@gmail.com, or get in touch via Blue Sky at AQNIN9. And if you want to be like Zebedee
Chaos.
And
you too can be Zebedee Chaos.
Sponsor an episode. Then yes, there's a PayPal link in the show notes, and that just helps keep the hosting costs covered and gives us a little bit of peace of mind. Lovely. All right. We'll speak next week.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.